Hey everybody, Polly here. Welcome to the weekly news recap for the 12th? Shit, the 12th of May to the 18th of May, I think, 2025. Just gonna move the microphone a little bit. Alright. So this week, we don't actually have a huge amount in the update section. I was made aware of this showcase, just for a game called Silver Palace. From the looks of things, it's another Genshin Impact kind of thing, like a gachapon, free to play, but you gotta pull for like 5-star characters and stuff like that. What's kind of interested me is that it is quite clearly running in Unreal Engine 5, which is pretty impressive. That the engine itself is very good, but getting a big open city to run in it has been difficult for a lot of developers, because Unreal Engine 5 seems to struggle somewhat with open worlds, and is much better at like interiors and small maps and stuff like that, and it really shines in those kind of environments, but like big open environments it's really not great at. So I'm going to skip ahead a little bit so we can get to like some of the more gameplay sections, or at least when you're out in the city. So the deal with the game is you're a detective, I guess, or something, and you're looking for like some kind of demonic presence in the city and what have you. And when you find it, it's just fighting and what have you. The horse drifts, which is kind of hilarious. This whole section is just of the horse drifting around corners. You could drift in Red Dead as well, couldn't you? But it was something you had to unlock, I think. It's not clear if you can just absolutely wipe out an NPC by drifting into them with the horse. I don't know. The combat itself also looks pretty cool. I'll skip ahead a bit here. So I think here's where they spot that this is a demon in hiding, and he just fucking headshots her. This is still hilarious. I've seen that a few times now. Very elaborate character designs, which is very much a Genshin gacha thing. It's kind of a frame rate drop there when they're transitioning into combat. But yeah, I think the combat looks pretty interesting. You can see on the right hand side as well that there's a bunch of different characters that you'll be able to swap in and out of, which is very much the Genshin model. This character you're playing as is almost certainly a 5-star character. They're probably not the default. Anyway, the game itself is developed by a Chinese developer, and it is quite a while away. I'd say maybe a year or 2 years before you'll probably see it. And then this showcase is lengthy enough. It's about 10 minutes or so. I'm going to skip to a bit, because you're seeing now a little bit of them walking around in the upper sections up on the rooftops and stuff like that. And there is a bit later where the horse can fly there. So this kind of stuff, right? This kind of streaming in of the map, as I said, is difficult. It's not impossible, as you're quite clearly seeing. It's not impossible to do in Unreal Engine 5, but it is very hard. So, and it does seem to be running pretty well. We did see like some frame rate problems when it was transitioning into combat, but once you were in it, it seemed like it was fine. And again, this is a work in progress. Who knows when they have to make all of this work online with multiplayer and what have you, they may have to dial down some of this stuff. But right now, it's certainly looking very impressive. One to keep an eye on, anyway. If you're in, well, even if you're not into the gachapon stuff, I think just from a technical standpoint, it looks very impressive. And that transition from flying into back on the ground again is pretty cool. Anyway, that's Silver Palace. It doesn't have a release date or anything like that. This is a test version and does not represent final quality of the game, etc., etc. There's still a fair bit of stuff left in that video if you want to check it out yourself. Elsewhere, kind of out of nowhere, the Sinking City has had a remaster. So this is from the Frogwares people. They are currently working on the Sinking City 2, which had a Kickstarter a while ago and has successfully been funded. So we'll be looking into that at some point. But this was kind of shadow dropped this week. If you already own the Sinking City, the remaster's a free update. Sinking City itself, I liked kind of the detective and story element of the game. I think the part I didn't like was the combat. The combat is very basic and not amazing. And Frogwares, to be fair, most of their games are much heavier on the detective end of, like, they make the Sherlock Holmes games. Like, the combat has always been the weakest part of those, and it's pretty weak in the Sinking City as well. The Sinking City 2 looks like it's going for more of a almost Resident Evil over the shoulder combat stuff, which I think will help it a lot. But again, it's still something that Frogwares do, I think, struggle with a little bit, is compelling combat mechanics. We'll see how that works out for them. Anyway, Sinking City Remastered. If you already own it, it's a free upgrade. If not, I don't think it's changed the price. So it should be still pretty cheap. News that should probably not surprise anybody. Marvel 1943, The Rise of Hydra, delayed to 2026. So it was originally slated for this year, some stage. There was no specific release date. I imagine now that they know when GTA 6 is coming out. They were reluctant to say when in 2025 because they didn't know when GTA was coming out. Now that they know GTA is going to be middle of next year, they can say, okay, we're going to launch January, February, probably, for Rise of Hydra. We're taking this additional time, will allow us to add more polish and make sure we give you the best possible experience, and one that lives up to our vision. We have some exciting things in store. Look forward to sharing more soon, yada, yada, yada. We were just scared that GTA 6 would eat our sales, basically. And you're going to see that from a lot of developers, I think. Summer Games Fest is pretty soon. It's also why we don't have much in the update section, because it's in the next 2 weeks, I think. So a lot of developers will be holding back on that. The rest of this is just going into the synopsis of what the game is going to be. It's Captain America and Black Panther set during World War II. And looks like it's going to be kind of Uncharted, sort of. It is by Amy Hennig, is the writer for it. She wrote for the first 2 Uncharted, and I think she did a bit of writing on Uncharted 3. She also wrote for Legacy of Kain, which is a fantastic story. It is bonkers and insane, like there's time-traveling vampires and shit going on, but it's nuts. But it's a great story. I love it. All right, anyway, moving on. Epic Games Store, Dead Island 2. Pretty decent. It's not exactly open world, but it is kind of it's a first-person zombie sort of survival game. Not really a survival game. It's more like a melee combat zombie thing. You have different abilities. There's a little bit of parkour into it. It's not quite the Dying Light levels of parkour. It is very much just beating up zombies with ridiculous weapons and stuff like that. It's fun. It's a bit mindless, but it's enjoyable in small doses, I think. Anyway, free to play free to grab on Epic Games Store. I don't think it includes the DLC. I doubt it, because the Ultimate Edition isn't. The Ultimate Edition is heavily discounted, but it's obviously not free. No, it looks like they're selling the DLC as well, so I doubt it includes the DLC. Also, we have Happy Game, which from the synopsis is very much not a happy game. A little boy falls asleep to a horrible nightmare. Can you make him happy again? I doubt it. Adventure horror puzzle. They haven't exactly given us a lot to go on. That doesn't look very happy. It's just nice bright colors, but this is pretty creepy. Anyway, what Happy Game is, I have no idea. Oh, it's the Botanicula guys. Okay, so that's like all of their games now at this point? I think the last week it was either Botanicula or Chuchel, and then the week before that it was the other one, and then the week before that I think it was Machinarium. So that's effectively all of their games now. Anyway, moving on. Middle of May, so PlayStation Plus Premium and PlayStation Plus Extra are getting their catalog updates. It's pretty good. This month it's not quite Game Pass levels of good, but it's decent. So Sandland it's based on another anime. Sorry, it's based on a manga from Akira Toriyama, R.I.P. Responsible for Dragon Ball in particular, but this is a different one. You're playing this kind of demon child thing in a tank, and you roll around the kind of desert environment. You can see kind of the Dragon Ball Capsule Core stuff influences here. I think Sandland is after Dragon Ball. I assume it is anyway. From what I've seen from reviews, it's decent. It's not like great, but it's good. And I think kind of the issue is that the tank combat itself gets either... I think it's a bit monotonous with just regular enemies, and then kind of the more difficult enemies, it's just a little bit too hard, I think is the general consensus for it. But I mean, free if you're already paying for PlayStation Plus. Soul Hackers 2 is, I believe, from Atlas. It's the same team that works on the Devil Summoner series and the Persona series. I don't think it's the specific team that works on Persona, but it's in the same developer house. Soul Hackers 1 was, I think it was a PS2 RPG. It's pretty decent. It's kind of Tron, sort of. It's like you're diving into a kind of fantasy version of going inside somebody's PC. It's a little bit like that. Anyway, dark supernatural investigative world, sci-fi, neo-noir, the glimmer of neon lights, technological advancement, humans to be consumed by commercial convenience. Devil summoners harness otherworldly powers. This seems more like Shin Megami Tensei than Soul Hackers. A digital hive mind has evolved into sentience, observing humankind. A world-ending disaster is imminent. Creates agents to ward against it. That's what you're playing as one of them. These agents must investigate and prevent butterfly effects. It's effectively it's Persona without the school stuff. It's Shin Megami Tensei, more or less, but you have a party of characters. Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted is not the VR one. I think it's like a collection of a bunch of Five Nights at Freddy's games. Yeah, so it's the original 2, 3, 4, and then the sister location one. I don't think it includes the VR one. It's a combined version of Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted and the DLC. Oh no, it is the VR one. Yeah, PSVR 2. Okay. And you can play it without the VR as well. Okay. Battlefield 5. The new Battlefield is meant to be out later on this year, so this is probably just a chance to get people back into the swing of things. I don't remember if Battlefield 5 was particularly well received or not. Stalker, Legends of the Zone Trilogy is getting a PS5 update, Xbox Series update later on this year. Or this might actually be the update, I'm not sure. But this is a trilogy, effectively, of the Stalker games, Stalker 1, and then its pseudo-sequels. Grand Blue Fantasy Versus, I think, is the fighting game. Delightful fighting game experience for beginners and veterans alike. So, if you may or may not be familiar with the Grand Blue Fantasy series, it's a fairly long-running JRPG series. There's why can't I say this word properly? Grand Blue Fantasy Versus Rising, and then there's Grand Blue Fantasy something. That's more of a JRPG, whereas this is a fighting game. Humankind is Civilization at Home, effectively. It's alright, but obviously it was the better game. Story of Seasons, I don't think this is by the original Story of Seasons developers anymore. I think they lost that IP a while ago, and it's been like a different developer, we'll say, that's not been as protective of the IP as maybe they should be. All I'm basically saying is I don't think it's great compared to some of the older Story of Seasons games. Gloomhaven, the Mercenaries Edition, and I think the Mercenaries Edition is just it adds a bunch of DLC stuff. But Gloomhaven is a pretty cool dungeon crawler. Gloomhaven fans will be annoyed if I describe it as Dungeons and Dragons, but I'm not 100% wrong, you know? I don't think it runs on dice rules, though. I think Gloomhaven runs on more of like a deck building thing. And the premium, Battle Engine Aquila, which is a fucking old as balls fucking PS1 game, I think. You play Hawk Winter. It's a pilot Battle Engine Aquila. It's a shmup. Harness Aquila's versatile mobility, awesome firepower, guide legions of allies to victory. Doesn't say when the original came out. Anyway, this is a port of a... Pretty sure Battle Engine Aquila is a PS1 game. It's decent. decent. Okay, anyway, moving on. Those are some of the games you can play soon. What if you wanted to play something right now? You can play Doom the Dark Ages, which is getting pretty glowing reviews, but I have heard from a lot of people that it takes a while to get going. So there's it's a little bit heavy on the story, and you might be expecting Doom. Why does Doom have a story? And it does anyway in Doom the Dark Ages. And the game doesn't really get going until like chapter 6 or something like that. So keeping that in mind, I guess, when you start playing that, it's expected that there's a fair bit of like exposition in the beginning and maybe a little bit too much hand-holding in the first couple of chapters. It is a long game. So I say chapter 6, you might think in a Doom game that's like almost the end of the game. It's actually a fairly long game. So yeah, keep that in mind. Otherwise, it's getting some pretty good reviews. But I do think most people are finding it's interesting to look at it because some people didn't like Doom Eternal and are really like Doom the Dark Ages, and then I find people who really liked Eternal don't like this one, or it's not that they don't like it, they just don't like it as much. And I think that probably just comes down to preference in playstyle. Doom the Dark Ages is a much slower paced game than Doom Eternal, but of course Doom Eternal was crazy fast. So it's I don't think Doom was ever really known as a fast game, exactly. Maybe not. Thinking back to the original Doom, was it really considered a very fast-paced game? Not really. Anyway, the more disappointing thing, for me at least, is that the disc version of Doom is just a download key, which is kind of a bit shit considering Doom's history of being like shareware and being everywhere and it effectively being almost, preservation proof kind of thing, and that it's just so ubiquitous, and then having the disc version not be, properly like a preservation item is a bit shit. That does mean that the download is going to be fairly significant, though, so do keep an eye out for that one. All right, anyway, that's Doom the Dark Ages. And we have two smaller games that I think I mentioned. I've mentioned a few, both of these, I think, a couple of times. So Labyrinth of the Demon King is a kind of a throwback to some old PS1 Western RPGs. Actually, not Western RPGs. Kingsfield's a FromSoft game. Why aren't you playing? Okay, no, they just left that up for that long. Okay. So it's a first-person dungeon crawler. It is done in a kind of crusty PS1 style graphics. If you are familiar with the Kingsfield games, you'll probably recognize what I'm talking about. It was this very kind of pulled-in first-person melee. Kingsfield was more of a like medieval fantasy type thing. It predates the Dark Souls games, but it is a From Software game. So this is kind of like a homage to that kind of thing. Labyrinth of the Demon King, I think it does have some procedural elements to it, but I'm not sure how much. But it does seem kind of interesting, and I am keen to check it out. I believe there is a demo available for it as well. And then Culebra and the Souls of Limbo I talked about last week because it is on Xbox Game Pass, but it is effectively a kind of Spiritfarer type game that you are in Limbo. You are the Culebra, the snake guy, which I think that's what Culebra means, but I'm not sure. And you're kind of trying to help the people that you're meeting in Limbo to move on to the afterlife and reincarnation or whatever, I don't know. But the point is you're trying to help them out with their problems, and it is kind of almost a puzzle game, adventure game, but very much in the way like Spiritfarer was at trying to help people move on kind of thing. Anyway, that also, I believe, has a demo, and I think it's PC and Switch only. Don't think it's on the other consoles. Never mind. It is. It's in fact on everything except PlayStation by the looks of it. That's good stuff, Sony. They really are helping out the indie devs. Anyway, unfortunately though, it is time to talk about the worst part of video games, the video game industry. So Bungie was caught plagiarizing yet again. Art, this time with Marathon. Previously it was with Destiny. Anyway, Bungie confirms unauthorized use of art after artist claims her work is present throughout Marathon. So Artist Anti-Real claimed yesterday, this would have been... can't count. Wednesday or Thursday? Found their art spread throughout the environment in Bungie's recent Marathon Alpha, so they're showing all clips of it. Some people are playing it, etc. And she was saying that looks familiar. Anyway, they were posting proof of it, and then many other people started posting their own proof of it, and basically saying that, hey, this is a bit plagiarism, you guys. 24 hours later, the Marathon dev team's X account posted that they were confirming unauthorized use of Anti-Real's work. We immediately investigated a concern regarding unauthorized use of artist decals in Marathon and confirmed that a former Bungie artist included these in a texture sheet that was ultimately used in-game. This issue was unknown by our existing art team. Bullshit. And we are still reviewing how this oversight occurred. We take matters like this very seriously. Yes, you do. This is why it's the second time this has happened. We have reached out to Anti-Real to discuss this issue and are committed to do right by the artists. Anti-Real themselves hasn't come back to say if Bungie have actually reached out to them or not. I do think it is telling that they used the Marathon dev team's account and not the Bungie account or the Marathon account, which has way more followers and would be seen by way more people. But no, they used the Marathon dev team one, which has much fewer followers and is not going to be seen by as many people. Still seems like they might be trying to bury this. Anyway, they continue saying like, yeah, it's policy, we don't do this, yada yada yada. You have though. Anyway, this is the kind of thing we're looking at. So you can see like the Aleph. Can I make this bigger? Okay, you can see like the Aleph decal, and there is text there that's probably a bit hard to read on your screens. It's hard for me. I can't tell what it says either, but it appears in multiple different locations. You've got these arrow chevrons. You've got this strip of icons that is exactly the exact same strip, and this kind of texture sheet stuff is all over the place. And there's more. That's just a couple of them that were highlighted. If you follow the social media accounts of or not even follow it, go into their accounts. They've posted tons of them at this point. So Anti-Real had to say that, like, this isn't the first time this has happened. I don't have the resources nor the energy to spare to pursue this legally, but I have lost count of the number of times a major company has deemed it easier to pay a designer to imitate or steal my work than to write me an email. In 10 years, I have never made a consistent income from this work, and I am tired of designers from huge companies mood boarding and parasiting? I'm not sure that's a word. Anyway, my designs while I struggle to make a living. Then in an interview with the Washington Post, they said, I'd kind of had to learn to shut up about these cases because they've happened so constantly over the last 10 years. It was tiring to be viewed as someone who just complains more than as an artist, but the response this time has been overwhelming understanding, and I'm extremely thankful for the support. So hopefully something comes out of that. But this doesn't seem to have been just something that slipped into Marathon in the last year or whatever, because these decals have been present as far back as 2017. A little bit more concerning is that Joseph Cross, Marathon's art director, does follow Anti-Real on Twitter, as well as a couple of other artists that follow them as well. The two have never communicated officially, so there's a bit of a like tinfoil hat thing that it's actually Joseph Cross who submitted these things into the art direction stuff, and because he's the art director, nothing's gonna happen. So they can just pawn it off on some anonymous designer that doesn't work there anymore. Anyway, this is not the first time Bungie has plagiarized an artist's work. 2023, there was a problem in Destiny 2 where they had reused a bunch of stuff that was present in a cutscene that I think is no longer accessible. And they do have the lawsuit that they wanted to have dismissed. We talked about it last week, where they were saying it's demonstrably different. And the judge was like, okay, demonstrate it for me, please. And they're like, oh, we can't because we vault all our stuff because we're shitty to our players. So that case has to go ahead, basically, because there's no way to demonstrate that it's different. Anyway, so Marathon is coming out soon enough, end of September. But with these things like present everywhere, is it debatable if they'll manage to get any of them removed before then. And if it's the case that they can't get them removed, will they pay Anti-Real to, license that stuff? Or will she just refuse under general principle? I don't know. But there's an issue there that they might have to figure out. potentially they might delay Marathon because of it. And that's not the only reason that they might delay Marathon, because after a rough reception and evidence of art theft in Marathon, morale is reportedly in free fall at Bungie, as if morale wasn't bad enough, because Destiny 2 is also not doing particularly well. They've had a bunch of scandals around their upper management being shit, basically. And then there's the problem that Sony looks like it is planning to carve them up into smaller developers. They already have Team LFG 2 weeks ago or something that used to be an internal Bungie team, and they've now repurposed for their own development team. Anyway, so Marathon was caught using assets without permission. Then there was a live stream that was featuring the game's director and the game's art director, Joseph Cross, that was filled with vitriol, basically, about them plagiarizing, directed at Joseph Cross and so on. That just filled up the chat, as people weren't even really talking about the game, which is somewhat reminiscent of the Nintendo Switch 2 live streams, where they were just talking about how fucking expensive the thing was and not about the game or anything like that. Anyway, the response to the shooter has been quite mixed based on the alpha playtests and stuff like that. So things apparently also don't sound great internally, as a bunch of current and former employees spoke with Forbes to basically say that morale is in free fall across all departments and that the vibes have never been worse. Vibes are rancid right now. They are concerned about what happens if Marathon flops. As we talked about already, Sony does seem like it's ready to either shut down the studio or carve it up into smaller studios or something like that. Nothing has been said publicly about a potential delay from September, but they do feel that it is possible and that those conversations are happening with the higher ups, but they don't have any visibility of that. The art theft thing has been thrown. They're throwing a former designer under the bus, except they're not really, because they're not naming them. There's just some nebulous anonymous designer. You kind of feel like if it's going to cause Bungie such a big problem, that they would name them, right? Because there's like a monetary impact that this will have if they have to either pay it off or delay the game or whatever, but they're not naming them. Yeah, potentially it's just to avoid a lawsuit, or they don't have the evidence for it and their name may come out in another time, or we already know their name and their name is Joseph Cross and they're the art director. I don't know. Anyway, Bungie's marketing plans also seem to have been taking a bit of a hit. There's meant to be a trailer coming out next month to highlight the game and kick off pre-orders and stuff like that, but that might be being pushed back because, well, one, if they show any in-game footage, they'll be showing those decals again, which may cause them more problems with the plagiarism and potential lawsuit. So that might need to be pushed back, and if they're going to push back the pre-order windows and stuff like that, they may have to end up pushing back the game's release date as well. Those that spoke with Forums also said that Marathon was pitched by higher-up good old boy Bungie leadership, and as long as 5 years ago team members were trying to explain what would and would not work, they were frequently ignored. Apparently many devs noted there should be some kind of PvE element to the game. Yes, there should be. A frequent complaint you will likely have seen about the game by now. Yes, pretty much everybody has been saying, I'd love to play this game, but I don't want to play with other people. It's like, well, tough shit, you gotta play with other people. Anyway, we'll see what comes of that, if they end up delaying it, if anything comes out of the plagiarism side of things. The one from Destiny is an ongoing lawsuit, whether anti-real, they said themselves they don't have the funds for it. They do have court of public opinion on their side right now, so potentially they might be able to get a settlement out of it. And Bungie itself may just simply seek a settlement just so they can keep using the art and not have to change anything. But I guess we'll see. Alright, moving on. Speaking of live service games that are probably not long for this world, Jade Raymond leaves Haven Studios 4 years after founding the company. So they are working on a game called Fairgames, which is effectively, it's kind of like the finals, I suppose. So it's a PvP 5v5 extraction thing. So it's like 2 teams of 5 are both attempting to extract, we'll say, the same thing. They're both dropped into the map to steal something, and to get out with it. But you're competing with each other for who gets to the item first, and then who eventually, leaves the map with the item, whatever it is. Anyway, founder Jade Raymond founded Haven Studios in 2021, just shortly after. Actually, it might have been during the lockdown and pandemic. But no public reason was given. She's leaving before the game is out, which is not a good sign, and has never been a good sign in the past. Jade Raymond has been an incredible partner and visionary force in founding Haven Studios. Deeply grateful for their leadership, contributions. We wish her all the best in the next chapter. PlayStation is committed to supporting Haven Studios and excited to continue the journey. So no reason given. Not that there necessarily would be. Potentially at like a funding call or not a funding call, earnings call at some point. Maybe Sony will have to say why she left. But leaving just before the game is out is not really a good sign. So Fairgames is a multiplayer title that will likely be a live service shooter akin to the finals from Embark Studios. Players teaming up to rob the Super Witch while fighting off opponents with similar goals. Yeah, that was a much better way to describe it. I don't know why I didn't go with that. So, I mean, that is the summation of the news, but it is certainly not a good look. Jade Raymond has been responsible for a lot of probably mostly Ubisoft stuff, but she has been at EA as well, and now more recently at Sony, so she's largely responsible for the Assassin's Creed and like Far Cry 3 and onwards series, and the Star Wars Battlefront 2. I think she was fairly instrumental in that as well. So like she has a pretty good pedigree for decent, if not great, games. The question, I guess, now will be whether she left because she just doesn't agree with the direction the game is going in, or that Sony have lost confidence in the game itself and maybe want to turn it into something else, and she doesn't want to leave it like that. We don't know. The rumor is that developers at Haven are not particularly happy with how the game is turning out. And if that is a question that Jade Raymond agrees with those ideas and wants to jump ship before the game actually comes out, or if she disagrees with those ideas and has found working with those developers now like untenable. We don't know. It could be anything. All we know is that she's left, and that's probably not a good sign. Anyway, speaking of not a good sign for society in general. Anyway, Fortnite's now letting people squad up with a Darth Vader chatbot for some reason. So of course streamers have already made it swear and talk about titties. So yeah, Epic have decided to put in a Darth Vader chatbot that's powered by generative LLM stuff, so we can respond to you allegedly within context, and people have got it to say things, slurs, swears, talking about skibidi toilets and stuff like that. Stupid shit. The problem here, for me, it isn't necessarily that this exists. Like, it's shit that it exists, but it's not necessarily a problem. Character AI already exists, and that's a problem as it stands. My issue with it is that Fortnite is a pretty big property, and this really does feel like the first crack in the dam, where a big fucking hole in the dam of us starting to see this stuff everywhere. It is a significant property to start using this stuff in, and unless it gets shut down immediately, which it doesn't look like is happening, I do feel you're going to start seeing more of this. Anyway, so Fortnite now includes a Darth Vader chatbot. Whether this is a good thing or not, I don't know, but James Earl Jones, voice of Darth Vader, his estate did give permission for them to use it, so we don't really have a plagiarism problem necessarily. That's not the problem. The problem is that it exists in the first place. Anyway, you can strategize with the ultimate Sith Lord with your voice, and he'll respond back using conversational AI, which isn't actually AI. That's just a marketing term. It's LLM, but whatever. We've lost that argument, I think, at this point. But yeah, as the author of this article, Mark Warren, points out, it just helps normalize this kind of stuff that is deeply anti-creator, deeply anti-curiosity, deeply anti-whatever, But yes, it is funny that it's getting it to say stupid shit and getting people to call them mummy, and that's just something about milkers, I think Vader said as well. You wouldn't have any of these problems if you had hired a voice actor to do it. But no, they wanted to be cheap and make something gross. Anyway, an update on here was that we pushed a fix because Vader started saying fuck. More or less. Which, if you've ever followed any kind of large chatbot that is open to the public, the time it takes to get them to say something problematic is very, very short. Like, Microsoft had to pull what was supposed to be like a teen chatbot or something because it just got like radicalized far right almost immediately. I mean, Vader already is kind of far right anyway. It's not like he needs to be radicalized, but it's also a game that's meant to be played by younger people, and there is a thing for, like, if you're under 13 years of age, you need to give consent to talk to the robot, which is a sentence. It's a sentence I'm not sure I ever wanted to hear. Anyway, we'll see how this works out, because it's only been live for a couple of days. Not even a couple of days, like one day, I think. And I'm sure you may have seen some social media of it going around, but it's pretty shit. And the way that it is being, like, it's being played with as a toy, and I don't think enough people are realizing this shit is just... You're not just seeing it in, like, small games where people are trying to cut costs, or acid flip on Steam and it's using AI everywhere kind of stuff. This is inside something that already makes a shit ton of money. They don't need to cut costs here. This is just straight up anti-worker and anti-consumer, because the experience is you're not really talking to Vader when he's able to, like, fucking say skibidi toilet and mommy milkers and stuff like that. Like, yes, it's funny. It is funny. But that's not the experience you're really going for. And I very much doubt it was the experience that Disney is going for. So the really... the only potential silver lining here is that Disney might step in and go, yeah, we don't want this. But Disney like money too, so who knows. Anyway, moving on. Speaking of people who probably like money and are in the wrong business. Anyway, accessibility leader accused of employee abuse and waste of charities' funds. So this is coming from Able Gamers, Mark Bartlett's founder, and has now somewhat been forced out, who knows. Anyway, Mark Bartlett, the founder of the high-profile gaming accessibility charity Able Gamers, has been accused of fostering abuse at the non-profit for more than 2 decades. That's a long run. He had a good game. All right, anyway. So this is coming from a report published at IGN. Former colleagues claim Bartlett used sexist, racist, and misogynistic language in the workplace, including about other employees, and made comments offensive to other disabled people. Amazing! At a accessibility charity. Cool. Again, this is allegedly. Anyway. Bartlett repeatedly referred to another employee as the company's HR representatives, as she was the only woman in the business. Great stuff. A little bit of sexism in there too. This source also claimed that Bartlett would also make offensive remarks regarding her breasts in front of colleagues. Cool. Keep going with a bit more sexism. Why not? Bartlett left the charity last September following an investigation by an external law firm, but denies all claims of abuse and harassment. Why'd you leave then? Nothing of this happened, but I'm gonna go so you can't keep investigating. Anyway, after thoroughly being investigated by an independent third party, it was determined that none of that was true. This is according to Bartlett in a statement. Other claims involve wasteful spending of the charity's funds, first-class air travel, extended hotel stays, basically just abuse of the company credit card, and installing an official charger for his personal vehicle. Tesla. Of course it's a Tesla. Anyway, is it a Cybertruck? That would really just be the icing on the cake there. Anyway, regardless, it is claimed that in April 2024, investigation by an external payroll and HR firm advised Able Gamers board to part ways with Bartlett after concerns over his spending. So it does seem like the spending is at least true. Or concerning, perhaps. The advice was reportedly ignored. This prompted multiple employees to file an Equal Employment Opportunity Commission complaint, the EEOC, prompting the latter investigation, which was the investigation over the misogynist, sexist, ableist remarks and stuff like that. The one that he said was thoroughly investigated, independent third parties determined none of it was true. He didn't have that to say about the spending, though. He's like, no, all that stuff about me being sexist and whatever, that's not true. Me spending all the company's money in embezzlement, yeah, that's true. Anyway, advice was repeatedly ignored. Employees spoke up about it. There was an investigation. Bartlett left. Does seem like maybe there was something there, albeit reportedly with a severance package. So it does feel like the ignoring of the complaint, allowing him to leave rather than fire him, and so on, it does sound like the board is protecting itself and protecting the reputation of the charity, because it is a charity. To have this kind of thing come out would be scandalous, as it is now that it has come out. Good job. Anyway, since his departure, Bartlett has started a new firm. Great. Employees who spoke out about him claimed they were subsequently forced out of AbleGamer by its board in retaliation. Again, that's more just trying to bury it. Burying it like this is what allows him to go out and make a new one, so he can just continue that cycle. Employees still at AbleGamers claim they have been repeatedly dissuaded from sharing their experiences. It's alleged that the charity's Stephen Spawn, it doesn't say who he is, he must be on the board. Anyway, has told staff not to speak out for fear of ruining the charity's reputation. Well, congratulations, you've already done that. Anyway, speaking of people who shouldn't speak out, Ori Studio Head says review bombing might force studio closure, then takes it all back. Good stuff. So there was a claim from Thomas Mahler of Moon Studios, people behind Ori and the Blind Forest, and more recently No Rest for the Wicked, which is where the review bombing is happening. Review bombing could effectively lead to the closure of the studio. Okay, it's entirely possible we won't be around in a couple of months to do anything anymore simply because we got review bombed. Review bombing leads to people not buying the game. The problem is, of course, is that it hasn't actually been review bombed. Okay, that's not to say it hasn't received negative reviews. It has, and for reasons we'll get to in a moment, but it's not like a concerted effort to review it negatively kind of thing, what you would expect from a review bombing. This is just people, players of your game, venting and giving their review, and the review is negative. Anyway, the game is currently sitting on a mostly positive. 43,000 reviews, 75% are positive. So, like, it is overall liked. It is considered a good game. Definitely not something that's going to affect the bottom line anytime soon. The review bombing, as he calls it, is linked to a recent update that went down badly with players. Mahler described the update's release as one of the worst days of my life, as the studio rushed to send out hotfixes and acknowledged the many issues. So, seems legit that you would be getting negative reviews because of this update that was not well received by players, that you acknowledged had many issues. Okay? Mahler took to Twitter to explain that it's the fault of the press for interpreting his saying his studio won't be around in a couple of months as meaning the studio won't be around in a couple of months. He, in fact, wrote those comments to push back against some of the bullshit reviews. What are you talking about? Everyone who's tried Wicked after the last few hotfixes is extremely positive. The reason I left the post on Discord was to push back. Push back on what? Something that wasn't happening. Okay. Bit weird. I've been hated on Twitter by a few crazies for years now, and I also saw the calls for review bombing because, according to those folks, I'm a Nazi. Okay, these days apparently anyone who doesn't include 5 trans characters in their game and doesn't let their products be influenced by political bullshit is a Nazi. What a world we live in. Yeah, okay, I'm starting to see why maybe those other rumors about you being a huge piece of shit might also be true. Anyway, he also came out and said he didn't want to take sides in the illegal Russian invasion of Ukraine. Who's talking about political bullshit now? Which again, there's really only the one side here. But anyway, we're not in immediate financial danger. I'm allowed to speak up about issues within our industry I find unbecoming, even though there were no issues. Your game is at a mostly positive. Okay. Something that might help illuminate this guy, if the, complaining about trans people didn't help you, and the complaining and not taking a side in this didn't say anything to you. In 2022, VentureBeat reported that staff working at Moon Studios had told the outlet that there was a culture of casual racism, sexism, and bullying. Described it as an oppressive workplace. Thomas Mahler has been head of the studio since its founding. Anyway. Alright, some things over on the community side. So Palworld mod restores, gliding feature pulled amid the Nintendo lawsuit. This is something I kind of figured was going to happen when we talked about it last week. So last week we talked about Pocket Pair removing the gliding ability in Palworld. So which is somewhat misleading. They haven't removed the gliding ability. You just can't glide with the pals, the definitely not Pokemon creatures. You have to have your own separate glider now instead, which is shit. They have also removed the definitely not a Pokeball catching and summoning of your pals who are definitely not Pokemon, and so on. Like, there's definitely a side by side. These are the same picture between Pokemon and Palworld, but so many games copy each other. Like, I don't see why we're singling out this one over any other ones. Anyway, a modder has now restored the feature on PC. Palworld themselves, when they were talking about having to remove the gliding with your pals ability, said they were forced to make yet another compromise due to Nintendo's ongoing patent infringement claim. Anyway, the mod has now been put out. You will still need a glider in your inventory to make it work, so that it'll still work with the latest patch, and that if, updates come out to the game, that the mod won't break and stuff like that. So, but you'll still be able to glide with your pals instead, the way the game was originally meant to be intended. Anyway, the glider restoration mod it's up on Nexus mod as well, so we'll see how long it actually stays up there. I think I neglected to mention it last week, but the patents that Nintendo has and the Pokemon Company have and so on around the Pokeball and the gliding and stuff like that, they tacked that onto pre-existing patents. So the pre-existing patents are pre-existing, obviously, from before Palworld was released, even started development or whatever. But the additional stuff that they're relying on for their patent infringement claim was added after Palworld was released, which should suggest that they shouldn't be able to use that, because Palworld should now be considered prior art, and as such not subject to this patent. But because it's attached to a pre-existing one, you have to check the date of that one, and that one precedes Palworld. So there's a legal. Which one do you go with? Do you go with the update addendum date, in which case Palworld are fine, or do you go with the original date of the patent, in which case Pocket Pair Palworld are not fine and are patent infringement? I did say last week, though, that I don't think game mechanics and software in general should be patentable. It shouldn't be a thing. Art should not be patentable. Can we get rid of the weird corporate legalese stuff around artistic endeavors? Would be nice. Anyway. Of course, then we have an issue of who owns the art and copyright, and yeah, there are those problems as well. Anyway, not to say that it isn't perfect, I just don't think it should be patentable. Anyway, moving on. Tekken Boss wants to add Waffle House to Tekken, but says it is ignoring his calls. So this is somewhat of a deep dive into the Tekken community, I guess. So Kazuhiro Harada, Tekken series producer, recently was on Twitter talking to followers and so on, and wondering why so many of them were asking for Waffle House to be added as a stage. Because he's like, huh? I don't get it. Anyway, it's apparently based on a bunch of viral videos of people fighting in Waffle Houses, and the staff of Waffle House fighting as well, and so on. And there's one particular video where somebody throws a chair at one of the Waffle House staff, and he just like knocks the chair out of the way with his own chair, and it's like super smooth. And loads of people were saying like incredible like fighting move. And Harada himself, after he was shown the video, was like, yeah, amazing parry. So a year later, he's kind of updated people on, kind of ridiculousness of getting Waffle House in as a stage. It's probably not going to happen. This is purely my own speculation, but I suspect that the lack of response may be due to the fact that the project I'm known for revolves around fighting-themed video games. By the way, no response is a very rare case. Do keep in mind, Katsuhiro Harada's English is not his first language, so there's going to be a little bit of translation-y stuff there. But basically, it's pretty rare not to get a response back from a big publisher wanting to collaborate with you. So them not responding is a pretty clear indication of no. Just no. We're not interested in any way. He did suggest that we could just, use like a fake Waffle House, call it Hustle House or something, and use that instead, and it would still effectively be the same thing. If using a different name or format is acceptable as long as the core message is maintained, I would be willing to seriously reconsider and explore this again. It is very, very dumb, and I do hope that they do that, because it's silly. Okay, we'll leave Doom to loop in the background. Anyway, that was your news for the 12th to the 18th of May, 2025. Again, not a whole lot on the update side of things. I would think a lot of developers are holding back for Summer Game Fest and so on, Future Game Show, Day of the Devs, all of that stuff that's going to be happening first week of June, maybe. So I'd say a few of them are holding back on that. The first delay we'll likely see, but for the Marvel game, I imagine we're going to see a couple of more games are going to delay now as well. Now that they know when GTA 6 is out and they can take advantage of coming out before it and stuff like that. Silver Palace gameplay looks interesting, but again, I think it's still somewhat early in development, and I doubt they've implemented all of their multiplayer code and stuff like that. So it will probably take a hit to have to deal with it. We'll see how it works out for them. Sinking City Remastered, yeah, that was the other one. Just a shadow drop. Again, it's probably... Like, I imagine they're working through, like, the Sinking City 2. It's probably got a new rendering engine and so on. So being able to port that over to Sinking City Remastered gives them a chance to see how it would look effectively for Sinking City 2. And sure, why not? We have the code now. We might as well put it out there. Anyway, news-wise, Marathon's not getting a good run of things, really. When it was announced, you could almost see, like, in real time, where people were looking at the trailer and thinking, oh, this looks great, this looks amazing. And it being revealed that it was an extraction PvP thing, and it's just like hype, like falls off a cliff. Which is both concerning but also very funny. And it just hasn't really ignited, hype, I feel, for people, because extraction shooters in general are fairly niche. PvP only, also pretty niche, like, not having a PvE mode is really going to hurt them. Anyway, the plagiarism, reusing somebody's decals is obviously also not a great look for them. It would be concerning. Like, the artist themselves says that they just don't bother because they don't have the legal means, the resources to fight it. They've said themselves that it's like years that they've been working on it, and they've found their stuff showing up in places that they haven't authorized it and that kind of thing. And I imagine they're not the only artists that's happened to. It's obviously also not a great thing when LLMs are starting to shove themselves in our faces, and how much of that is just a plagiarism machine. It's really not a great look. It's not a great look for Bungie, but it's particularly not a great look for the video game industry in general. The Darth Vader thing in Fortnite, again, on the surface, it's very funny that you can get Darth Vader to say "mommy milkers" and so on, but it really is. It does feel like it's the first step, or they've got their foot in the door now. They're in a fairly major game, Fortnite. Like, a lot of people play it. It's worrying that this is essentially now just any developer can, because Fortnite does it. and we copy fucking everything Fortnite does, so we're gonna do it too. Like, I don't like where this is going, because this Darth Vader, like, in sidekick, he's not. You're not in the world with him because you know you're manipulating the LLM to just say stupid shit. You know, it's not like a crafted voice actor who had his voice lines in and everything is done with a voice director, and they want to make sure it like fits the mood and the tone of the story, and they're never going to talk about things that exist outside of that world because it's immersion breaking and so on. And it's not. And LLMs will never be able to do that. It's just not. The technology is fundamentally incapable of doing it, and it's just not a good look. I don't like the way it's going, and I really hope it's just. I hope I'm wrong, and this isn't like the breaking of the dam or whatever, but it does feel like it's a significant crack in the dam if it isn't. Anyway, forget what else we were talking about. Jade Raymond leaving Haven Studios is obviously not a good look just before the game is out. Their debut game as well. It's not like she's worked on a couple of games with them or whatever. The first game of the studio that she founded. It's not a good look. Haven, I believe, are a Sony first party as well. So this could also be a case of Sony forcing the live service thing and now trying to roll back on us. Jade Raymond would have founded it when Jim Ryan was head of Sony or so of PlayStation and would have been pushing for a live service, so she would have had a lot of backing from him. And once he left, we did see that Sony were very much rowing back on the live service thing, cancelling tons of them. And it's possible she obviously potentially has lost that backing now because Sony are not as confident in the live service stuff. So it might just be the case that she's just leaving because the studio she founded for this reason effectively may or may not be being used for that reason anymore. I don't know. Again, unless they actually say why, it's just going to be speculation. And then I forget what the other news story was. What was the other one? Oh yeah, the Ori thing with the not review bombing. That was only a story because he made it a story. Like, just wanted to get himself in the news. I don't know. But it certainly just lends credence to the things that we've heard about Moon Studios' upper management over the years. That, yeah, it tracks. Anyway, that's it from me for today. Yeah, that's it for me for today. I don't know. I was going to say something else, but I lost my train of thought. Anyway, I'm going to head off. Have a good rest of your day, and I will talk to you guys next time. Bye.